I take refuge in the one bright mind and the wisdom of my teachers. One of the things that brings all of us human beings together is story. We all have common stories, and those common stories allow us to work in harmony with each other. For example, in North America, we have a common story about these little pieces of green paper with faces on them. And the common story is this little piece of green paper is worth 2.5 bananas. And we could take that little piece of green paper and we can trade it for 2.5 bananas almost any day of the week, anywhere in North America. And what is it? It's a piece of paper. But we have a story about that piece of paper which we all buy. We all have agreed, okay, let's all join in and make this story accepted as true. We have stories that bring us together. In a way, stories are one of the things that allows us to work in alignment with one another. We also have our personal stories. We have our political stories. We have our world stories. Now, stories are very, very useful. You know, those little green pieces of paper enable lots of things to happen. The story that we have that it's really better to drive on the right side of the road in North America is a pretty good story, and it works very well. On the other hand, stories are just stories. The story of my life, the story of who I am, is just a story. And my wife has a different version of that story. My children have a different version of that story. I have a different version of that story. My friends have a different version of that story. Everyone has a different version of the story. If we define our story as something rigid and narrow, like if we define what it means to be an American as a very rigid, narrow thing, it becomes very brittle. It cracks. It breaks. It becomes not something that brings us together, but something that is divisive. So everything that we look at is a story, but if we are flexibly able to say, oh, okay, my view of myself is a story right now. It's a story in evolution. It's a story that 10 years from now, I'll look back and that'll be a different story. I used to find that every 10 years, the story of my life would change. You know, the way I would look at things when I was 20, I would look at them very differently when I was 30 and 40 and 50. By the time I was 60, I've forgotten them all. So they're all stories. So the story of our country, the story of our government, the story of our successes, the story of our failures, just stories. So we can make use of story, or we can have a bigger view that realizes this is a particular set of causes and conditions that have temporarily come together to create whatever I happen to think of, whatever I happen to see, whatever situation I happen to be in, and that will change. No story is fixed. No story is finished. Every story is evolving. So people are worried about our particular political or economic or social or environmental situation, and clearly in every story there are some nice crisis points. That's what makes it interesting. You know, no story that doesn't build up to a crisis and have a denouement of some sort isn't very juicy. So we have in our story lots of crises, but they're just part of the story, part of what makes it interesting, part of the texture of our lives. So no matter whether your part of the story is happy and smooth, or whether your part of the story is profound and deep, whether your part of the story is light, and whether your part of the story is deep suffering, whether the story is coming apart or going together, please enjoy the story. Just like we read all kinds of stories, this is a story. You can enjoy any story, knowing it's a story, knowing that it will evolve, knowing that it's not permanent, knowing that it's not the fixed way things are. So please enjoy the story of your life as it evolves.
Please visit our website at zendesk.org for more information about our workshops, retreats, and opportunities to practice.